Welcome back, true believers and all you merry Marvelites, to another very exciting episode of Avengers Project 101. So previously, we did go over a very interesting GameSpot article which did cover a lot of new information revealed about the game during the Gamescom convention. And essentially, this article is very well written and extremely informative for everyone who wants to know anything about the newest updates relating to this game. So while the last thing that we actually discussed relating to Marvel's Avengers was directly regarding the in-depth gear and customization system, today we're actually going to be looking at how the mission structure operates, both relating to single player and the much anticipated co-op. So as we all know by now, Marvel's Avengers is going to be a type of live service game which will deliver content for fans to experience for years to come, which directly relates to both the single player and multiplayer aspects that it will feature. So if you're someone who wants to experience a fully AAA superhero game all by yourself like that of Marvel's Spider-Man, you can easily play the game single player, or if you want to play it with your friends, you can easily team up online with co-op. And even though that was pretty much all we knew about the game ever since E3, we now have a better understanding as to how it's all going to work. But to clarify something which is actually pretty important for some people who don't seem to understand how this is going to work yet, is that this game is not a free roaming experience. But instead, based off of what the main developers of the game said, there will in fact be multiple hub worlds within the Marvel universe that you can fully explore. And based off all the footage that we have received so far, some of these regions can easily indicate San Francisco, as well as New York and possibly AIM Island, only to name a few. So the main reason why to clarify that this is not a fully open world game like that of Spider-Man PS4 is because these hub worlds will actually include missions that you can partake in, either relating to single player or online co-op. And wouldn't you know it, after all the confusion that we've heard about how this game is actually going to operate, we finally have a name for some of these missions, with the single player ones being titled Hero Missions and the online ones called Warzone Missions. Now, even though it's surface level, it seems like you can find these types of missions in every other game, but given all the details that we do know about them, there is actually a lot of depth to it. As an example, the main hero missions that we do see in the game so far is none other than that of the A-Day demo, as well as that one sequence where Iron Man is in space. Whereas for these online co-op Warzone missions, we did actually get a small glimpse of that within the behind closed doors footage, which hasn't been posted online yet, as well as that one scene during the very end of the A-Day trailer. So basically, it is good to know that this game will have a lot of variety when it does come to its mission structure, and will hopefully appeal to a lot of its player base. And alongside of that, both of these types of missions come fully layered with a lot of narrative intrigue which will help push the story forward. So mainly in the case of these hero missions, each particular level is actually going to be fully catered to each specific Avengers playstyle. Not to mention, for the hardcore lore fans out there, there are going to be snippets of backstory featured within each mission. That way, while you're playing the main game to actually figure out what's going on with the Avengers and AIM, you can actually learn a lot of the backstory to figure out how each Avenger became the hero that they are today. And specifically as a bonus, even though these Warzone missions don't really do a lot to push the main campaign forward, they do a really good job at fleshing out the entirety of this Avengers universe. Plus, even though these Warzone missions are mainly meant to be played in a co-op manner, you can actually play them solo if you are so inclined. So if you're someone who wants to play through the entire game completely solo with no restrictions whatsoever, you can do just that. But with all these main details out of the way, I do want to highlight some very important notes from the GameSpot article, which probably will help explain them a bit more in depth. And as we head in right back to the very end of the A-Day demo, the prologue ends with Black Widow taking on Taskmaster alone in a fight that's full of prompts for quicktime events as she dodges the villain's jetpack-powered dives. It's a cool fight in which Widow has to constantly change her tactics to deal with Taskmaster's ability to adapt to her style, but relies largely on prompts and thus feels tightly controlled. According to Rich Briggs, senior brand director at Crystal Dynamics, the game will move away from QTEs soon after the prologue. The focus is still on making a cinematic, story-driven action game, but don't expect anything as directed as what's been shown so far. And to finalize as a big relief for the game itself, Briggs said players can expect big open levels. So I'm really glad that they actually confirmed that the QTEs within A-Day were only meant for that specific level, and as we continue playing through the game, we will in fact see less and less of them as we progress through the main story. So hopefully that's a bit more reassuring to the people who thought that the A-Day demo was an extremely scripted level compared to that of what the entirety of the Avengers project has in store. But as we continue to dive in deeper with this article, which then goes into the co-op aspects of the game, it states once you're through A-Day, Briggs said Avengers opens up. The game consists of two kinds of missions: story missions that will be somewhat similar to A-Day but focus on one hero at a time, and war zones, which are looser missions that you can play with up to 3 other people people cooperatively. Working through the story campaign has you reassembling your Avengers team by convincing each hurt broken hero to rejoin the team to face a new enemy. Longtime Marvel Evil Corporation Advanced Idea Mechanics, or AIM. In the absence of the Avengers, AIM has stepped in with advanced synthoid AI soldiers to protect the world from superpowered people. Of course, AIM is evil, and there is a conspiracy afoot the Avengers will need to unravel to stop the bad guys and their world-dominating ambitions. So yes, as it was previously revealed in a Square Enix post, one of the main threats that we will be facing within this game is in fact Advanced Idea Mechanics, so hopefully that does mean that there will be a lot of enemy variety throughout the entirety of this game. But before this article goes into how these Warzone missions actually work, it does give us some very important story details which were revealed during San Diego Comic-Con. However, there is one new piece of info which I do think is very intriguing to say the least. And as the article states, recruiting the characters returns them to a reclaimed helicarrier you'll use as a base of operations. Adding them to the team you can then take into more missions. They're going to take some convincing though. Tony Stark has withdrawn from the world because he feels he's failed it. Thor abandoned Mjolnir at Cap's memorial site and no longer feels worthy of fighting as a hero. Black Widow is back to her life as a lone wolf spy, and Bruce Banner's anguish has him trapped in a Hulk state, unable to revert to his human form. Now, even though it does sound exciting to try and reassemble each individual Avenger to add to your ever-growing roster of heroes, I don't like how similar the main narrative does sound like to that of Avengers Endgame. It was already previously leaked that the main character who's going to help reassemble each individual Avenger is none other than Kamala Khan as Miss Marvel. And based off the story details that we do have so far, I can definitely see that being the case. The developers have stated numerous times that this is their own unique interpretation of the Avengers characters, but I really don't want them to take too much from the MCU, otherwise it's not going to feel as original as I'm hoping for. But another point to highlight is the fact that we will be using a reclaimed helicarrier as our main hub world as a base of operations. Now, whether or not this turns out to be the remnants of the Chimera helicarrier is still up in the air, but I do think it's going to be very interesting to explore this main area. But of course, the main aspect as to why you're going to be using the helicarrier in the first place is to be choosing which type of missions to go on within the world. And as the article states within that regard, as you progress through the narrative, you'll unlock additional story and Warzone missions that you can choose to play at your own pace, which are spread across the globe. Briggs said that all the missions will feed back into the narrative. Completing a story mission might give you access to new war zones, and finishing war zones might in turn unlock more missions of both types. So essentially, the more that you play, the more that you end up gaining, both relating to enhancing the game's main narrative as well as increasing the amount of co-op opportunities that you can access. And seeing that this is being treated as a type of live service game, I really do hope that all these missions can actually intrigue the players to wanting to keep playing the game. Because if the game does end up being a very heavily superhero focused version of a looter shooter, it's gonna get pretty old pretty fast, but I do really hope it all works out in the long run. And to finalize the mission structure aspect of the article itself, it states, but while story missions make up what Crystal Dynamics previously referred to as Avengers Bespoke Campaign, Warzone games take on more of an open world flavor. Playable alone or in co-op, they're a bit more generic in that they send you out to cool down conflict hotspots, but have less of a narrative hook. You can take any hero you've recruited into war zones, and the missions are dynamic based on which heroes you bring along for the fight and what powers and abilities they have. All the missions include a power level ranking number when you see them on the world map, which gives you a sense of what you'll encounter, but you'll also set your own difficulty levels for missions. So it is very interesting to see that the more we do end up learning about this co-op mechanic within the game, the more confusing and in-depth it actually sounds like it's going to turn out to be. But for me personally, I've been waiting for quite a while for a really good online co-op game to play with my friends, and seeing how this actually relates to the one and only Avengers, I couldn't ask for anything better. So I'm just currently hoping and crossing my fingers that everything is going to work out for the absolute best. And until next time everyone, thank you all so much for watching, and please let me know all your thoughts in the comments section down below. What do you think about Marvel's Avengers' current mission structure, and how do you think it's going to fare relating to both single player and online co-op? Based on how these types of games operate, I'm personally going to be playing the entire game solo first, and then after I beat the main story, then I'll fully dive into what the co-op has to offer. And speaking of dives, it's actually confirmed by the developers themselves that we will be getting a full-on deep dive showcase of how the co-op is going to play within this game sometime in early 2020. And given the small glimpses of co-op that I did see during E3 and San Diego Comic-Con, I definitely think this is going to be a feature which will fully invest players for a long time. But until that time comes, everyone, thank you all so much for watching, stay merry Marvelites, and peace out.
This is exactly what I wanted. All of you against all of me. How can you possibly hope to stop me?
Like the old man said. Together.